All right, let's talk some Aaron Rodgers here. Over the weekend, or I guess on Friday, I believe, Ben Roethlisberger had a bit of a blunt prediction for Aaron Rodgers, and it's certainly one that I think a lot of people agree with, but at the same time, something to discuss. He said, quote, on his podcast, Football, and I don't think he's got more after this year. I don't know. I'm just guessing in terms of you coming off an Achilles, coming off an elbow. My first year back, I felt like I was 100%. I wasn't. Even you don't realize you're not 100 until the next year when you are 100. He continued and said, is Aaron the quarterback of the future? No, because we don't know how many. Aaron may only be here 1 year, at most 2, 3, which is probably pushing it. I'll ask you this question. Aaron's on a 1-year deal. The Steelers are going to draft a quarterback in the top, I would guess, 10 to 15 picks next season in the NFL draft. What does it take for Aaron Rodgers to return to the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026?
Oh, man, I think it has to be some sort of like heartbreaking defeat in 2025. I think it has very, very little to do with any of the money or quarterback situation or anything like that. I think it would just really come down to, does this season end in a way where the Steelers give themselves a ton of hope, make the playoffs, maybe win a playoff game or something hypothetically, and then lose, in heartbreaking fashion in the divisional game or the conference championship or something like that. Then maybe there's this sense of unfinished business happening with Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. But beyond that, there's very little that I think would happen or realistically could give Aaron Rodgers the desire to play another year, or give the Steelers the desire to bring Rodgers back for another season. And I guess I'll ask you this question too. Is there any scenario that happens where you want Rodgers to come back after another season?
I think it happens if the Steelers show that they're a Super Bowl contender with Rodgers, and that Rodgers still has a lot left in the tank, and then they go out and they draft somebody and they say, all right, well, we could let this rock, as Aaron's going to give us a shot this year, because the NFL knows, we could sit here on the outside, and people get mad at me all the time for saying this. Rookie quarterbacks don't win Super Bowls. They've never won a Super Bowl. Every single person within an NFL locker room, rookie quarterbacks included, no, rookie quarterbacks don't win Super Bowls. Doesn't happen. So if the Steelers look at it and say, we're okay, we are in the window, we are very confident that our team could pull this off in 2026, I could see them saying, Aaron's got to be the guy, and then we'll let our first-round quarterback learn from him for a year, and then we'll give him the reins the year after that. I don't think Aaron's got more than 2 years in Pittsburgh, but I think that if they could show that they are true contenders this year, not just regular season contenders, you're not going to do what Russ and Justin did. You have to win some playoff games and say, we came a loss to Josh Allen away from pulling this thing off. If that's the case, I think that the Steelers could look at him and say, all right, let's do it one more time. And I think Aaron could say, all right, let's do it one more time and see what happens. And then from there, I'm going to retire. It's going to be the end of this. But I could see it. They'd have to be very clearly a team just about there, and understand, and this guy that we picked 7th isn't going to get us there. Aaron Rodgers might. So that's in my eyes the only way he comes back. If they're a playoff team and they lose in the first round again, Aaron's not coming back. If they are a playoff team and they beat somebody crappy, like last year, if they beat the Houston Texans, like people are like, oh, that's awesome, but it also sucks. Like, that's not impressive. The Houston Texans they were terrible. If that's what it is again, something in that ballpark, I could see them saying, okay, that wasn't impressive enough. You beat a Baltimore, you beat a Buffalo, you beat a Kansas City, you beat a good Houston team, any team like that. I could see the Steelers saying, all right, let's give it one more shot and see what we got. And it won't be an open competition. It'll be Rodgers' job. And then if he stinks, they'll obviously have a backup plan in that rookie.
Man, I hate that that's so logically sound, and that probably is a realistic possibility. But yeah, I mean, okay, all right, I hear you. I think That all makes complete sense, and I am in general in agreement with you. If it seems like they're close, like if it seems like they finally are within the mix in the AFC, then
Yeah.
yeah, I guess you'd have a hard argument to make against bringing back that same team for the most part. And yeah, and then I think my question, just real quick off of that, is like, even if Rodgers has a good year, they win a couple playoff games, make a run. Do we feel like 2026 is the ideal year for the Steelers to be attempting to win a Super Bowl? And does a 42-year-old quarterback still feel like the best option then? Or is 2026 going to be a year that, regardless of who is in the quarterback position, the franchise quarterback of the future, who was recently drafted, or someone who is, handing over the keys and teaching within the system, is the same expectation going to be there, that like, we aren't Super Bowl ready yet, but we're getting there?
No, I think the expectation is Super Bowl no matter what. The
Gotcha.
Steelers are tired. Art
Mhm.
Rooney's pissed off. He understands that he's only got a couple more years before he's going to hand this team off to his kid.
Mhm.
Omar Khan's pissed off. People are the no. This was the first offseason where somebody had to be honest with Mike Tomlin, and they were, from everything I was told, that the noise on the outside is becoming so loud that it's becoming harder and harder and harder to ignore the problems and the mistakes that Mike Tomlin makes. And Mike Tomlin's not on the hot seat. It's just to a point where Mike Tomlin's got to show that the Steelers are going to win another Super Bowl relatively soon. Otherwise, the Steelers have no other option but to say we have to listen to the fan base. Do I think that happens ever and they move on from Mike? No, but I do think that the Steelers have to stay Super Bowl relevant forever. They can't go anywhere else, because if that's the case, people are going to lose their jobs.
Mhm.
I and again, they know, they understand that a 42-year-old quarterback might not have any juice left in the tank. And if he comes in and the Steelers are a win away from the Super Bowl, but Rodgers clearly isn't the guy that got them there, all right, there's reason to just say we're good. But if Rodgers looks good this season, if Rodgers looks like a competent quarterback who's winning football games and completing 2-minute drives when you give them to him, and winning games for the Steelers when he needs to win games for the Steelers, I mean, they're not going to make that argument. They're going to look at it and say, there's no long-term commitment to this guy. We have our long-term commitment. And people will always bring up like, oh, but you're hurting the reps. They don't care about the reps. Nobody in the NFL cares. Nobody, like, honestly, not a single person in the NFL sits around and goes, yeah, that guy's not going to give us our best shot to win a Super Bowl, but we have to make sure that he's on the field right now. No, nobody cares about that.
Mhm.
Nobody. The fans care about that. The NFL, the people within the NFL, they don't give a damn about, if you're the best player on the field at that position, you will play. If you're not, nobody cares about anything else ever, especially not in Pittsburgh. So if they think that Aaron's like got enough juice left in the tank, yeah, I could see them saying, all right, I get it, he's 42, but like, we'll try. But he's gotta, like, it can't be, oh, Aaron's not losing football games. It has to be Aaron's winning football games.
Mhm.
That's got to be the only way that Aaron could come back. In my opinion, that's the only way that I think the Steelers would bring him back. With that said, I got a stat line for you.
Mhm.
BetUS released his over under on touchdowns, and Andrew Filipponi, who always has a good hot take, tossed out his prediction for Aaron Rodgers, and BetUS says 23 and a half touchdowns this season. Pony says 24 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 7 wins for Aaron Rodgers. Remove the 7 wins. That doesn't get you anywhere. 23 and a half touchdowns. We'll say 24 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. What do you say if that's the stat line at the end of the season and the Steelers obviously have a winning record, make the playoffs? We'll avoid the after the playoffs. At the end of the season, week 17, week 18 just finished. What's your reaction to a 24 and 13 season from Aaron Rodgers?
Honestly, I feel somewhat unsurprised if that is the stat line that comes out, especially if it, helps them sneak into the playoffs or gives Tom another winning season again. I think coming off a 28 touchdown season last year with the Jets and looking, healthy after the Achilles recovery and all that, I think it's pretty fair to assume or to suggest that he will finish near that 28 touchdown mark. I don't expect him to hit it again because he is another year older. He's not, this is his 21st year in the NFL. I think it's fair to assume that there will be some sort of drop off, but I think my range is probably 25 to 28 touchdowns, is what I would predict, somewhere in that range. So I could see him doing a little bit better than that. All that to say, I won't be shocked if that is a stat line he finishes with. But I also don't think that that would be a stat line that predicts the Steelers only winning 7 games, like Filipponi
No.
seemed to have indicated.
No. Could you imagine things that have to go wrong if the Steelers won 7 games
A
and
lot.
Aaron Rodgers threw for 24 touchdowns? Like,
Right.
you're just like, oh, okay. Kenny Pickett threw for 13 and 13 interceptions, and the Steelers won 10 games. Like, they were just like, or maybe 9 games. But either way, they were a playoff team. Like, the Steelers, they weren't awful. And Kenny Pickett was awful. If you have a competent quarterback who's throwing, 13 touchdowns is a lot. And I think that's my biggest surprise on this prediction
Mhm.
is like Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw interceptions. He's never been a guy that throws a bunch of interceptions. He's pretty protective of the football. Maybe he's not going to throw for 30 touchdowns, but 13 interceptions is a lot of interceptions. And I just have such a hard time believing that that's going to happen. Again, if he wins 7 games, so many other things went wrong for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this on paper team way worse than what we thought they were going to be. 24, yikes. Like, big yikes. Okay, let's say this though, in the realm of the hypothetical conversation we're having. Aaron Rodgers throws for 24 touchdowns, let's say 6, 7 interceptions. I don't think he throws 10. Let's say 7 interceptions. The Steelers win 10 games. They win 1 playoff game against the Baltimore Ravens. Okay.
Mhm.
Do you look at Rodgers as the guy that you believe should come back?
That certainly changes the consideration. I mean, that I don't I am genuinely very unsold on the idea that bringing Rodgers back for a second year would be the best option. That being said, I leave tons of space and time for that to change. And in the hypothetical you're describing here, I don't know if a first round, franchise quarterback, albeit whoever, the names that we want to throw out there that feel like the best fit,
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of hope and belief that that quarterback would come in and win more than one critical playoff game against a divisional opponent than Rodgers would. So it would give me pause in my consideration, and it would probably make me think long and hard about bringing him back. But oof, yeah, that would right now I'd say it's not enough to bring him back for me, but I can certainly see that it is a strong building block for the case to bring him back.
I will say that if the Steelers beat the Ravens in the playoffs, I don't care who the quarterback is. It means nothing to me.
Mhm,
Like nothing. Like it doesn't. You beat the Ravens. Awesome. That's
mhm.
great. You know what I mean? Go beat Patrick Mahomes. go beat go
Fair.
beat Josh Allen,
Mhm,
Don't beat the team that you beat historically more than you lose to them. That's
fair.
not what you're looking to do. Like, it's
Mhm,
last year, it was the Steelers defense is so atrocious that they didn't have a shot at that game.
mhm,
And they had a shot at that game. Like, that's the craziest part is they had times where you're like, all right, like there's a possibility here. You're not, I don't care if you beat Baltimore. That's the
mhm,
one playoff game to me that does not matter. Like, it
mhm,
doesn't change anything for the future. But I will say that if Aaron has a good season there and they do, I bet you the Steelers would think about it. I bet you they would. I'm not saying I would, but I bet you the Steelers would have some conversation about whether or not that's the move.